Okay, well, that's amazing. You guys are amazing. It's very, very awesome to be here. I'm 100% honored and happy to come before you and to be able to speak and to share a voice with you this evening. We're on Lenape, Haudenosaunee, and other territories, and we do acknowledge that, but we're also at the birthplace of hip-hop. You know what I mean? I grew up, I've been listening to hip-hop since cassette tapes and Walkmans. There was no such thing as an MP3. I was slow to go to the MP3. I still buy CDs sometimes. My name is Chase Iron Eyes. I'm from the Northern Plains. I'm Lakota, or Seven Council Fires is what we call the whole lot of us. Sioux is another term that the world knows us by. And I started a Facebook in 2009. That's when I regret the day somebody sent me an email, so-and-so wants you to join Facebook. Right? So I signed up. And with, it didn't take too long, maybe a couple years, before I realized that Native people, Indigenous people we've always had this intellect, this perception, this epistemology, maybe a living epistemology, a way to get along in the universe. And we weren't really communicating that. We were doing what everybody else does on Facebook, and what Facebook wants you to do on Facebook. They want you to conduct yourselves as consumers. And that's what Facebook has become. That's what social media has become. They just pay attention to what you click, what you like, what you share, what your buying potential is, and when your buying potential time is. That's kind of where social media has come to. And as Indigenous peoples, we have a huge responsibility to correct that and to balance that and to make sure that what we do online is meaningful. And I didn't know all that stuff when we started our site in 2012, January 1st, 2012. That was 18 years after the Zapatistas had asserted themselves as independent in the world. And that was in 1994, if some of you remember that. They're still there. They're still in Chiapas doing their thing. They've got their own schools down there, and they're existing as Indigenous peoples there. So we wanted to launch on that date to honor the Zapatistas. And so we did, and when we first created it, it was going to be like this, like a think tank. That's how I envisioned it. I thought, I'm a lawyer. I know that, nerds, we can rely on nerds. Whenever I come to New York, the only place I want to go is Staten Island. You guys ever heard of the Wu-Tang Clan? That's the only place I ever want to go. They got Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, Empire State Building. Take me to the Wu-Tang Clan. But why am I talking about Wu? Oh, nerds rule everything around me. Right? Everybody, I guarantee you, everybody in this room you're a nerd. But you're somebody that we've got to rely on to push whatever Indigenous media is. We're the people that are going to push it, and we're going to co-create this reality. I better skip this slide. I'm just going to be on this slide the whole time I'm up here. Okay, these are some of the things that we've done, and media it moves fast. We're living in a digital age. Binary code, zeros and ones, the whole bit. it's real. It's real. I don't know if a byte of information is real, but what digital media and what the digitization of media is doing to human beings is real. It occupies space, it occupies consciousness, it changes the way that we conduct ourselves. And for indigenous people, I thought, what is traditional media? What was our media before contact? And what media is the communication, the method or the means and the content, whatever gets communicated to human beings, to societies. For indigenous people, our media was song, it still is song, dance, oration, storytelling, animals, plants, birds, the seasons, dreams, your dreams. Those were things that were communicating, and they still do communicate to human beings. But we've been subjected to this colonization. We can, whatever you want to call it, it's this Western colonial capital Christian European patriarchy, right? Something like that. That's the worldview that is pushed everywhere. That's the reality that the purveyors of those worldviews were able to create, and we're sitting in that reality right now. Sometimes we react to that, sometimes we lash out at it, but some way or another, our spirits are trying to find a way to express themselves. Our spirits are not supposed to be disconnected from our mind, which is what has happened through that big long, I got to think of a cool acronym for that, all that stuff. Right? We sense that. When I come to this city, I sense that. I sense from being surrounded by concrete, I get pissed because I don't know which way is north, east, south, west. And I got natural scouting abilities or something. I need to know my directions. I need to see the sun so I know where I'm going. Every time I get off the subway, it's like, where am I, man? So I whip out my little Indian Scout tool, that little GPS unit, find my way. There's things that we've got to do as humans that we have to find a way. Not only has our mind been separated from our spirit, but our labor has been separated from meaning. When I think of the word economy, what we think of economy is, you go to work, you make money, you trade that money for necessary things. Food, clothing, shelter, water, energy, that sort of stuff. Well, with indigenous people, and indigenous doesn't mean brown people that live in the Western Hemisphere. Indigenous means any set of humans, now this is just my own little freestyle definition here, any set of humans that are receiving gifts and instructions from what we call the natural universe. This is what indigenous peoples are. They take gifts and knowledge from the world around them, and they're able to conduct ceremonies, they're able to provide a different economy. I call it a spiritual economy. We're doing it now. We're figuring out ways to do regenerative economies here in the 21st century. We had a different economic year. Just for instance, for the Buffalo people, the Buffalo Nations, and it's all over for corn people, salmon people, however you want to put it. Our economic year was spent procuring those necessary things from gifts that were already here, that predated humans, like the buffalo. The buffalo provided the food, the clothing, the shelter, all from one animal. And then we had to go and get the water and energy as well. But those were there the same way. And now with the economic system that we live within, I think the big word for it is neoclassic economics. That's a cool, fancy word. How Adbusters describes that set of concepts, I guess. But that's the kind of the short, real freestyle history. But when I listen to us talk, everything is informed by that logic of capital and that big long acronym, and we're trying to constantly create something else, something new from that, and we're always responding to it. So for me, it's just a good exercise to be aware of that, and that's why we created the site. The site, I mean, I don't. It's not that I don't pay attention anymore, but we've had over maybe 150 maybe different writers and maybe 100 different nations, you know, in North America, South America, Africa. I don't think we got any Samis. Samis are they're the white Indians, by the way, in Northern Europe. But we literally have been waiting 500 years to tell our stories. Since the arrival of the English language, still photos, the concept of time as in the little clocks in the hands and stuff, we moved away from the sun time to what we think is time. But I mean, you get it. There's a lot that has happened to us. That's before Hollywood. That's before the noble savage. That's before the romanticized Indian. That's before in my mind, a purposeful attempt to objectify a whole people, a whole group, with the intent of usurping their whole spiritual makeup. What they wanted to do was just, and it's not just Indians that it happens to. Everybody has a spirit in mind. They're trying to take the whole thing out from us. They're trying to extract our spirit and have us look back at it and make us objects, trying to look back. What indigenous media does is what art does. It's what any movement does. It's trying to express something spiritual, something from inside, something that comes from the land. It comes from the language. For me, that's what indigenous media is about. For me, indigenous is not even a race. Indigenous is bigger than that. And our definition of media is bigger than just things that get communicated. I mean, that's a rather passive way to look at what media is. Let me just finish that thought. I'll come back to it. But media is not a passive thing. We cannot be passive in making media, in creating content. If you're in this room and you understand the things that we're talking about, you have a greater responsibility. Thinkers, doers, warriors, philosophers, leaders, people who are gifted with that, almost like a burden. You know, I remember when I didn't care about any of this, and that was a fun time. Right? But you guys, we have a responsibility with media to create the future. That's a huge responsibility. In our history, you know, last real Indians, this is the grainiest photo I could have ever shared with the new school here. But essentially, in our short history, this was in April of 2012. And we launched January 1 of 2012, so we were, 4 months old probably. And we were doing our thing, writing articles, and that was good at the time. It was popping off. That's how it went. And then I get a call from one of my crazy relatives who says, "Chase, we're gonna do a roadblock." This was in Pine Ridge, on the Pine Ridge Res. "We're going to block the road. There's some components coming through that are destined for the Keystone XL pipeline," which that's not coming through our territory. Everybody, the world's on due notice here for that. So she says, "This is going to go down. You might want to write an article or use that website, the Real Indian thing that you got going on there, and cover this." And so I was taking my kids to a movie, so I put them in their little movie, and I bounce out on my little iPad, and I write an article. And they send me pictures, we posted it, and it's the first time that I realized that Indigenous media could go seriously viral, just big. I mean, we didn't need big media outlets anymore. Because when we started, we started small. Like, I think for the longest time, we had maybe 1,000 people that liked our Facebook page. We didn't even have a Twitter. Did we make a Twitter? Anyway. When this happened, and we could do things in real time, we could do the backpack media, we could put the content out, but also we're on the backside creating the thing. We're the people that are protesting. We're the people with the cameras that are making this whole thing happen. We're orchestrating this whole thing. And that was the first time for me that it opened my eyes that, hey, there's big things that we could do here. And we see how big it gets with Arab Spring, with the Occupy movement. We're in the heart of what the Occupy movement was trying to do. And I laud the Occupy movement. We, Indigenous peoples, have got to merge with people that are seeking reality. Because that's what, to me, that's what Occupy is. It's this response to this logic of capital. But for me, I don't remember the numbers on this, but it was a lot. It was enough to make me say, damn. And then we found out about a guy, one of our elders, who has, something happened to him, and, for purposes of, public legal disclosures, I'm an attorney on his case, so I can't say anything that would potentially prejudice a potential juror on either side, or there's some long legalese thing, okay, on this. But he had KKK, according to my objective, reasonable interpretation of the thing here, he had KKK or some configuration of scars on his stomach. And this was the first social media organized action or protest or whatever you want to call it that we had started. And I think maybe 800 people showed up. And this was in May of 2012, and when did I Don't Know More pop off? In December? I Don't Know More just took it to the next level. We have amazing potential as creators of our own content. And Adrian and Jessica really did a swell job on this. I don't think I really have anything to add there, except we were concerned about the origin of those leopard print panties. I think that's indigenous African couture. Kidding. Here's another thing we did that's local. Local to New York. My friend DJ Two Bears hooked up with the artist called JR. That's his name, JR, or that's his character. I don't even really know what JR really is. But if you've seen around town, they've got these huge installation art. That DJ's eyes right there are about twice as big as this whole stage, and they're just laid up around town. There was a big one in Soho, And My Big Mug was up there as well, down by Worcester and Grand, I believe it is. But it was another way that Indigenous media was reaching out, and fortunately we were able to make connections through our good friends, JR, that's JR on the right, holding the broom. This is, that's Saul guy, he's another guy around New York. This is the first time in my life I realized I spelled Sitting Bull wrong. Strike me down for that. I'm Hunk Papa, Sitting Bull is Hunk Papa, and I just spelled his name wrong. Okay. This was when Idle No More kicked off, and we were taking over spaces, we were just controlling the narrative. We were coming in thousands, in the numbers, and taking over these spaces and just expressing ourselves. And they pasted this in France while JR was doing a different project out there. I just thought it was amazing. The movement really garnered help from around the world. This was the first thing that we did. We realized we could go viral, but when we did this campaign, I don't know if any of you remember it. It seems like a while ago, but it was 2012, right? The Peshla campaign, and we barely. I remember shooting the video that you had to put on the Indiegogo site. Shot that in the basement of my little dingy office, the thing that's an excuse for my office with papers strewn all about, with my iPhone, you know. That's how I shot the video, to do it. And in the first campaign, we raised about maybe $340,000, I think it was. And we had, and Peshla is a sacred site in the Black Hills. It's connected to Lakota cosmology, which a lot of our indigenous cosmologies, that's what they're connected to the stars. Peshla is a certain site among 6, 7 others that during different times of the year, during different seasons when the constellations change, the stars literally line up and with things that are on the earth. I'm sure other indigenous people still have these ways of being in the universe. So we wanted to, as crazy as it sounded, we wanted to buy stolen property, right? The United States stole this land from us, just straight up. There's another popular indigenous media thing, Got Land, Thank an Indian. Remember that? Got Land, Thank an Indian? Well, for us, it's not, don't thank us, just give it back. We manage it better. At least give us the sacred sites back. You can still come there as tourists. In the first campaign, we had about 11,000 different contributors around the world who, in my mind, I mean, that for a person to consider the concepts that land is sacred or sites are sacred, that's one of that for me, that's true. That's a hallmark of true civilization. That's what civilization is, besides being compassionate with each other as human beings. For us, that's what civilization is. And for 12,000 people, over 12,000 people from around the world, probably 20 different countries, to contribute to this effort to say, hey, we want to help you protect this sacred site, and we want you to prolong your ceremony and your instructions that you've got to do there. It just blew me away. It still blows me away. We had amazing help producing this video, but because we don't do things with a whole lot of forethought. I don't have the time to plan out that this is how this campaign is going to go. I'm not calling up a PR person or somebody else who's supposed to maybe gets paid to provide that sort of marketing direction. We're res. But it comes from a truly organic place. And that's really, for us, that's what media is for us. It's not a passive thing again. It's something that it's a reality that we co-create. This is just a cool picture. There's a story behind this as well, but like the rest of the panelists, they want to go into deep detail in every story. And I thank you guys for your attention because, we listen to three brilliant people and I'm the last guy and it's like, oh man, come on, dude. I see a bunch of little screens lighting people's faces up and I'm like, God, here we go. No, we're watching the live stream, they say. But this is something that we do in real life, I guess you could say. Everybody has heard of the Wounded Knee Massacre, that first photo of the guy on the horse. That's when Sitting Bull was killed, December 15th, 1890. Everybody got real anxious and was scared because they were killing ghost dancers, where I grew up. And a lot of people, Sitting Bull's people, his band, went down to Spotted Elk's, and Spotted Elk's band ended up going towards Red Cloud. That's when the Wounded Knee Massacre happened, when the 7th Cavalry intercepted them, disarmed them, and slaughtered them. For us, it's always a heavy, tragic, deep thing. It is that for everybody, and there's almost no way to circumvent that. But for us, with the Wounded Knee Survivors Run, we weren't trying to circumvent it, but what we were trying to do is take our young people and for us to own this conflicted, this genocidal history, to own it and to grow out of it, because not everybody died at Wounded Knee. There was a handful that made it 180 miles back to Spotted Elk's camp, where I got good brothers that grew up there, and I talked to them before we did this run to honor the people that went back on foot. We don't know how many there are, but since we started to do this run and to control the narrative and to put the media out, other elders and other people from our communities are stepping forward with oral knowledge that isn't in history books. And they're like, hey, did you know about the High Hawk boys, for instance, who guided their blind grandmother back while they were wounded with bullets in their legs? And so this year we honored those High Hawk boys on this run. It's a two and a half day, 180-mile run in frickin' the tundra. It's cold. And I won't talk too much about this either, because the crew here, there's a definite benefit to gaining coverage from mainstream media, and we need to do that. It is necessary that we do that. And we've done those partnerships, those co-promotions to do some of the work that we do at Last Real Indians, the things that we've done. We've worked extensively with NPR behind the scenes to try to draw some much needed attention to some efforts in South Dakota that there's some legal efforts there. They've got a system where they're taking children from Indian families, violating ICWA, placing them in non-Indian families, and there's a lot of money involved in this situation where there's $56 million coming from the feds to the state that should be going to us and all this. I said I wasn't going to talk about this slide. But that's kind of, you do need to make these connections. You do need to partner. You do need to reach out, because the media that we create isn't just so that the world, the outside world knows what we're thinking, what our consciousness is, and what is developing from that. That's one part of it. So the outside world, usually where pop culture and indigenous things intersect, that's kind of what mainstream covers. That's what mainstream gets. They get that Hollywood aspect. And now they can't do anything. We're on force. I mean, the internet cops are out, man. If they do this little hipster headdress thing, we're on it. They ain't getting away with that anymore. But there's the other side, and what do we do with indigenous media? And that's really where I want to take our site. Because we see that people respond to it, they resonate with it. And this is just a flyer. Tomorrow, my buddy's back home are doing a 5K, 10K, 1 mile fundraiser that I started it, organized it, planned it. Last minute, I did an old Indian trick and, oh, hey, I gotta go to New York. Sorry about that. You guys handle this now. So I wanna give a shout out because through this effort, just like Peshla, we were able to, and it's an unfortunate set of circumstances that led to this campaign. One of our tribal members in Standing Rock froze to death in a mobile home where the family could not afford the ridiculous propane prices that are prevalent right now this winter due to some corn shortage, and they got to dry the corn. There's all these reasons. And I know her. I know her brother. I know her children. And when that happened, that something inside me just snapped. I was like, we as Indigenous peoples we're failing. We're not providing for our own people. And we have to do that. Outside of media, there's an inherent sovereign concept, a gift that we live with, and we're not doing it right now. But I mentioned those things just to kind of give you the backdrop of heating the res. In 11 days, we raised $55,000, and that was our target, was $55,000, or it was 50,000, and we exceeded it. But the point of that campaign is to put renewable energy burning stoves inside our people's houses, and really to use media to create a renewable culture. Because as Indigenous peoples, we always say, yes, we are renewable culture people. But the reality is not really. We've been subjected to this imposed poverty culture, which changed our value system. It changed the way I think our ancestors would have intended us to be. We are not victims. And you can see that when we take over the narrative with media. But this is something that we're using media to actually try to change the way that people live. And who knows how big it can go. I mean, the world is looking to us to lead the way. Because they sense something. The world senses that whole cool acronym that I don't remember, this colonial, capital, patriarchy, abstraction, yada yada, that fiat currency, throw that in there too. That stuff is coming to an end. We're realizing that we can't drink oil and we can't eat money. So we're going to have to figure it out. And Indigenous content creators and Indigenous peoples have a very, very important role to play in that. And that plays along with this slide. I mean, this is a photo of I don't know how many buffalo that is, but the buffalo, of course, they suffered one of the greatest genocides in history. There was somewhere about 60 to 70, even up to 100 are some of the figures, 60 to 100 million buffalo. And at the turn from the 18th to the 19th to the 20th century, there was like 1,000, 1,200 buffalo. And that makes me think of what is our role? What is media's role with people that realize that there are these things that we've got to try to change? What is our role? What is our role today in the meme culture, where our attention spans on Facebook, on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Snapchat, on Vine? What's next? Every so often, they have the next thing that comes out where human beings is taking over our space. And it's getting shorter and shorter. When we first released Last Real Indians, I mean, the articles were 800 to 2,000 words, and that's a long time to sit there and read, okay? And it's just getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You I bet if you ask any one of the three up here, their most popular material on their platforms is the short, simple, catchiest, maybe even most offensive image. That's not by accident. There's a meme culture that's pervading. It just gets shorter and shorter. And it loses substance every single time. It's not cool. So for me, the point of indigenous media is to get us sharing again. Like Mariah, when she came up and sang the song and shared that space and broke the plane for us. That's what song does. That's what storytelling does. That's what running does. That's what swimming does. I mean, just making Mother Nature your homepage. That's really what I want media to do, so we can start sharing humanity again. Because we have to figure it out. And dreaming big, make no small plans. For me, indigenous media has a role to play in returning the whole of humanity, returning the planet to a true civilized way of being in this universe, a respectful way to implement a regenerative economy and realize this respect relationship that indigenous peoples have with the universe, with the sun, with motion, with Mother Earth, with the first spirits that were here. For me, that's what media is. Media is that big. That's our responsibility. And we are truly living in exciting times. They're prophetic times. There's crazy energies happening right now in the world, if you pay attention. And everything in the media is kind of designed to like get you to not pay attention. We get bombarded with 3,000 advertisements every single day. And we've got to fight back, and I know we have the right people. I want to thank you for your time, because I'm getting tired of hearing myself talk up here. Okay.
So originally, we had planned for a fashion remix and cultural ownership panel that would have included Adrian, Jessica, and Jarrett, and an advocacy and organizing panel that included Chase and Clayton. Now, as we said earlier, Clayton is still in the air, bounced back and forth between Ontario and New York. And being the Idle No More innovator that he is, he actually sent us a video from the airplane. So we are going to play that right now. But as Alex is pulling it up, I just want to point you towards the hashtag. It is on the program, and it's also right here in front as well. So if you are happily taking pictures and you want to start and keep a conversation going, we encourage you to use that hashtag across Twitter, across Instagram, and definitely share what was going on today with all of your friends and your personal network. So we're just going to get this video playing, and then we're going to move on to the question and answer session. And we do have a couple of questions from social media, so we can look forward to those. All right, we're going to get it started.
Clayton Thomas Mueller, everyone.
Hey, what's up? This New Media Symposium. Bonjour. Danse Zongibene, CNN, Chisnakas Unfortunately, Mercury is in retrograde, and I've just had one heck of a journey trying to get to be with all of you this evening. And so I wanted to send just a personalized video to extend my regrets. I'm rushing there. I might just bust in while you're watching this, but in short, I'm one of hundreds of indigenous organizers that make up the exciting social movement known as Idle No More. And, part of our success has been through the embracement of social media technologies to get our message about defending the sacredness of our Mother Earth and the sacred treaties and inherent rights base that our indigenous peoples have here in Turtle Island. I encourage you all, please, to check out idlenomore.com, sign up to be a part of the movement, and please reach out and contact me or any one of our organizers. All contacts available on Facebook, Twitter, and on our website, idlenomore.com. I know Chase from Last Real Indians and everyone else there is going to really show how Indian country and indigenous peoples are using social media to revolutionize our activism, to reach even more people than ever before. And I guess the main thing that's important about this social media revolution that's happening in Indian country is that it's normalizing the conversation around America and Canada's controversial colonial past. And that's bringing us much quicker. There's a quickening that is taking place in terms of reconciliation over colonization, genocide, and maybe a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of justice for the first peoples of this sacred land. So big shout out of respect to the organizers of the symposium, and we'll see you out in the streets and out on the land. Out on the moor.